What made you realize the relationship wasn't worth saving anymore? I was growing as a person and he wasn't. Consistent across 3 different men. I will no longer attempt to establish a relationship with someone who isn't extremely devoted to himself. His mother told me I was worth more. When he told me to kill myself and that he hoped my whole family would die because I couldn't bring home a burrito from work. I tolerated everything else but that was it for me. So many reasons. I was the only one fighting to make the relationship work. It was making me into a crazy person I didn't like or recognize. He was boring and unmotivated. Just being annoyed at their presence, unreliability and laziness. If I have to play mommy maid to a grown-ass man, I will leave his ass in a heartbeat. I am not making a chore chart like he's a child, and I'm not going to keep asking. Not pulling your weight on household duties is disrespectful, and a total turn-off. I dreaded seeing him message or call me. It was a relief when I spent long periods of time without him. I no longer viewed him as someone I wanted close to me. He became someone that I tried to actively avoid. I realized that this wasn't fair to either of us, so I broke it off. We had a pregnancy scare. I realized I was more worried about spending the rest of life tied to him than having a baby at 21. Honestly, it's when I started asking myself this question. Because he was a problem haver, not a problem solver. Sometimes he came up with a problem regarding our relationship and then when trying to find a concrete solution together. Because as soon as he realized I was willing to work to save it rather than dumping him, he stopped putting any effort into it himself, assuming that everything was instantly fixed. I started fantasizing that he would die. I didn't want to kill him, and I didn't and don't actually wish him dead, but I started to think about what would happen if he did die. He would be out of my life. I wouldn't have to decide whether to stay or go, and no messy divorce. He's still alive and well, but I'm getting the divorce. And for the record, there was no divorce or infidelity in our marriage. I just outgrew him. When I, 23, had told my now ex-husband, 32, that I felt like our flame was dying out 4 years into marriage, 5 years together total, and his response was always to blame my mental health, i.e., you just started new medication, you're not thinking clearly, or, you've been unable to see how happy I'm trying to make you because you aren't on your medicine anymore, etc. I told him 3 to 4x within 6 months that I wanted to do marital counseling, individual counseling, anything to help the marriage stay alive, and he shot me down saying things would be okay. I finally left in February after years of being gaslit and manipulated financially, and am still healing, but happier regardless. Edit. Spelling. I stopped being excited about seeing them. There were plenty of things. The thing that really put it in place was when I was making a move on him and he just refused and said he never found me attractive and that he wanted a skinnier girl. I asked him about the girl he cheated with a year earlier, because she was also plus-sized, and he said her boobs were bigger and that made a difference to him. I lost all emotional connection to him after that. We'd been on and off for 3 years at that point. I had to talk him down from killing his best friend in a drunk rage while they were on vacation together. The phone call was like, him, I have to kill Steve. I'm going to do it. Me, no, don't do that. I mean, please don't. Him, it's too late and now I got the asshole kill him. We had been together for 2 years and it was the final red flag I needed to see. I asked the question to myself and then realized I didn't care if it was saved or not. When I didn't even want to save it anymore. She asked me point blank if I was ready for a relationship, and then I realized she was right. 2 years in, we were about to move in together. When I saw my kids' eyes change. We shared a car. Coming home from work after a night shift, I'd get home with a 30-minute overlap before he had to leave for his 9-to-5 job. I started parking on the street or a parking lot and have a 25-minute nap so our overlap would be as short as possible. I remember thinking, this can't be normal. When I realized he wasn't capable of giving me the love I really needed from, and so. We were long distance, and I was driving back home after a visit and I was sobbing in my car. It hit me that unless I was willing to really confront him about these feelings and trust him, it wasn't going to work. It was really awful, because I knew I loved him but in a way that wasn't ever going to satisfy my own and probably his needs. It was a hard breakup and I told him that I really did need someone that made our relationship the center of our lives, not codependent, just the first priority in large decisions. Now I have that, and I feel so much more secure in myself. My partner now is supportive, kind, and loving in a way I don't think my ex would have been capable of without some serious work on himself. I was sad all the time. The depression and sadness consumed my life. Went through some pretty traumatic stuff, and he wasn't there. When I told him I was having suicidal thoughts, he just continued to stare at his phone. A mess from the start, but at least at the point when he felt physically appalling. Understanding that he only complained for me about his own problems, put me down etc., I no longer wanted to even see him. 2. His cruel and cold behavior out of the blue, understanding that he was nothing I wished he would be, also that his family would hate me and my family. He was a high-functioning alcoholic and refused to get help. I realized I couldn't be the cause or reason for him to change, he had to hit rock bottom. So I broke up with him. As far as I know, he still hasn't hit rock bottom. He was moving away and I was already emotionally detaching from him. We were having more arguments and I just stopped caring if we lasted or not. That he was a narcissist and I was in enormous pain about the way he treated me and also because of my treatment. It caused a major trauma, but I am moving on. I'm living with the love of my life and probably will get engaged within a year or 2. Exercise is very important for me and it's as though I had to twist his arm to even get him to walk around the block with me. Diet is very important to me and he made routine trips to Jack in the Box. Sobriety is very important to me and whilst I was sober, and he did make an effort to some degree, all his best friends were addicts which makes it doomed to fail. He quit other things but still heavily abused weed all day every day which blessed me with dealing with the roller coaster of his extreme weed withdrawals which was unbeknownst to me, and that I'd often blamed myself for until later. Oh, also he cheated on me multiple times. That not matter what I did or how hard I tried to give him a nice life he couldn't stop lying to me. From why he got fired to if he was talking to other girls. That there was never justification for the lies. I am an extremely understanding person and never gave him a reason to believe I would be less than that. Everything I did was never enough and he always needed more. He was always first on his priority list. Then his mom. Then kiddo and I tried many times but I just couldn't do everything and keep feeling like it wasn't enough. He went on trip and it took less than 24 hours for him to yell at me and throw something at me when he got home. At the end someone came back in my life who reminded me of who I used to be and made me feel like my old self. Someone I forgot. So I left. When he said I didn't add value to his life anymore. When I called him 2 days after he asked me to move in with him and while we were still working through things within our rocky at the end relationship and he eventually called me back on his way home from another girl's house. That's when I was done. I got tired of being disappointed. When she was texting her boyfriend after sex. He was looking to get back into his field of profession after taking a break. Overheard him talking on the phone with a friend in the next room who lived up north. Friend offered him a job, he took it on the spot. In the following sentences he confidently stated, "I'm sure man. I'm good to go, there's really nothing here holding me back. I just got up and left." He mocked my desire to take our relationship to the next level. Had a major complex with sex that caused mismatched sex drives. On top of it all he wouldn't seek therapy when he obviously needed it after his brother died. When I was happier when he deployed, and no I didn't cheat, though he did. And I dreaded his return. When he monkey branched and immediately started dating somebody before we were fully broken up. Lol. Also though, when I realized he could only handle me when I was my smaller self, not my most expansive self, the self I expanded to post-grief of the loss of a parent. I attempted to break up with him. Not for the first time. And he started crying and begging me not to, as he'd done with the other attempts. The difference was that in the past I'd felt touched and moved by his vulnerability and seen that as reason enough to try again. The last time, he started to cry, and I could see the crocodile tears. He was a professional actor. I'd seen him cry on cue, and I recognized it for what it was this time, not openness, but an attempt to manipulate me into backing down again. He forgot my birthday. Normally I'd be like, it's just another day of the year, but considering everything else that was going on in the relationship, it was really just the final straw. I was the only one making compromises. And I had outgrown him. The eventual recognition that I needed to pay attention to his actions more than his words. When there is no give and take anymore among the two people. When only a person gives their energy in but the other person were not reacting to the energy given, you might as well be in a relationship with yourself. Your energy will get sucked up every single time, and that will put a pressure on yourself when you are trying so hard to please the other person. Happy crying face. When the partner is no longer interested on saving the relationship anymore. It always takes two to tango. I was sick of the empty promises amongst other things. We were separated, but he wanted me to go back to living with him at his mum's house. Except they wanted me to pay £350 rent. I liked to pull my weight and wouldn't have minded until she said, "We don't need the money, so I'll just keep it. Then if you guys work out and get a house together, I can use it for a deposit." I was like, right. And what happens to that money if he decides I can't come home again? Then I asked for my name to be put on the bank account so I'd have a claim to it if we broke up. They told me that was a disrespectful request. So I thought using me as a bank was disrespectful and dumped him not long after. When I started to fantasize about my future and it didn't include him. Kept making excuses to see me, even though I was the one willing to come over. When I realized I was being made empty promises time and time over. When things would get heated, he would become super disrespectful and talk to me so rudely. And cuss me out. I never ever talked to him like that. There were buckets and buckets of red flags, but I still wanted it to work due to various forms of emotional and psychological, and some physical abuse I had been exposed to. I didn't want it all to be for nothing. Then one day he started using crazy making on me, trying to make me doubt my perception. Then, when I wasn't falling for it, he started calling me names, and this time I started getting ugly back to him. And I hated it. I hated who he was turning me into. That was the last straw. When I realized that, I started fantasizing about a better, more beautiful life that didn't include him just to save my sanity. When I kept having to mind her when she drank too much and passed out in a pool of her own pee and vomit at the end of every night out. Went on for 2 years and she never apologized for or acknowledged her dangerous behavior. I always ended up minding her, feeling responsible for what could happen to her if she was alone. Finally realized my behavior was just enabling her and she needed a reality hit. Hardest thing to watch your best friend crumble and having to walk away for her to build herself back together. When he wouldn't compromise and stop being selfish. When he said, "I could never and would never love you,"